So, hi, today I'm welcoming lovely Laura Carter, a fellow Boldwood Books author. And I'm very excited to see you here, Laura. I love your books and thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Debs.
My pleasure. So, now I've, first of all, I think I'll ask you a little bit about yourself. So, tell us
Okay.
a little bit about Laura Carter then.
A little bit about me. Okay, so I am a romance author. I write romantic comedies, sort of 1990s style, 2000s style romantic comedies, the kind of thing that I like to watch and read myself,
Love.
really. I also dabble, is that the right word, in women's fiction, but always with a very romantic slant.
Nice.
I am also still a commercial corporate lawyer, and I live in beautiful Jersey Channel Islands with my husband and two young boys.
Oh, it's so lovely. I think we're very lucky because we actually have there's quite a few of us authors over here, aren't there? I know when I started off, I thought, does anyone else do this here? I didn't think they did. And there are actually quite a few of us authors here, and it's actually a nice little community, I think.
There's a huge contingent. I don't know if it's, the chicken and egg situation, whether Jersey is a beautiful place to write, so authors move to Jersey, or living in Jersey inspires people to write. But yes, there are more, I think, in one small island than I would have expected, for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely agree there. I know that, I started writing romantic fiction, obviously living here because I've always lived here. And it's when I realized how many beautiful romantic settings they actually are. You've got so many different locations you can use for a book. And at that point, nobody else seemed to write romance set here. I know Sophie Cousins, who also lives here in Jersey, she wrote one set here, I believe, and there's
Mhm.
now quite a few historical ones written here. But yes, there wasn't anything here, so that was really quite nice. So where are your sets? So I know your most recent one, Stuck in Paradise with You. Tell us a little, because that's only been out 10 days, isn't it? And you've already
Yes.
got so many fabulous
Let's.
reviews.
Oh, thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you. Well, it's a little bit of I mean, it's always an exciting but nerve-wracking time when your new book comes out because you just don't know how it's going to be received. And for me, Stuck in Paradise with You has been the book I think I probably most enjoyed writing of all my books so far. And
Wow.
it kind of felt like when authors sometimes talk about that moment the stars aligned and a few things came together. And so I really enjoyed this one. And it was, I mean, no book is easy, but it felt easy because it was flowing and I had a real solid grip on the characters and the setting was so vivid to me. But you still don't know whether other people are going to enjoy reading it. So yes, it is nice to see the positive reviews coming in. Thank you. And I do, shameless plug, I have it
Oh,
there.
no. Oh,
In fact,
no.
my author copies only just arrived whilst I was away, and so immediately before coming on here to record, I did an unboxing video. So actually,
Oh,
I'm sitting with
brilliant.
sort of 10
Because you
copies
only got
next
that yesterday, didn't you?
on a mini break to listen back. So I
Oh,
thought,
lovely.
since I've actually washed my hair, I might as well might as well do a video. So yeah, so Stuck in Paradise with You. Well, obviously we know it's a rom-com. It is an enemies to lovers, second chances, forced proximity, uh,
Lovely.
tropical island set romance. So our main protagonists are Luke and Carrie. And as my agent told me when I pitched this idea, I can't believe you've made tax sexy. But they are both they are
It
both
takes a
tax.
corporate lawyer to be able to do that sort of thing.
I hope everybody else agrees that tax can be sexy. But yes, so they're both tax advisors. And 7 years prior to the book beginning, Luke was Carrie's supervisor. He was on the cusp of partnership in his accountancy firm, and Carrie was his junior. And they embarked on a very short-lived, slightly taboo office romance. And I don't want to spoil the book, but it ended very, very abruptly, and they became more haters than lovers at the end of it. So now fast forward 7 years, and this is where we pick up Carrie and Luke in the book. And basically Carrie has spent the last 7 years changing the narrative that she tried to sleep her way to the top, which she didn't. She fell in love. But it's taken her that long, she feels, to kind of unravel that story about herself. And now she is on the cusp of partnership at a different accountancy firm. And she is given one last act before she's made up. And that is to step in for another partner who has come down sick. And she has to go out. Oh, I feel so bad for her, but she has to go out to this private billionaire island in the Caribbean. Yes, I know. The heart bleeds, really. And so she is going out, and she's going to basically be there for a week and give him whatever tax advice he needs, and go home and make partnership, and that's it. So there she is, sitting in first class on the billionaire's airline, about to take off. The plane is taxiing, and she finally thinks, gosh, I best research this group of companies. Wow. And when she does, she finds that the new chief financial officer of the Heritage Group is none other than her ex, Luke. Oh. And then they are stuck in the Caribbean together. And in the background to all of this, there is a Category 5 hurricane coming to the island, and the airports are shut as a consequence. So they are truly forced onto the island together. And as I say, they absolutely hate each other. So cue a lot of banter and shenanigans, and rum punch.
Oh, it sounds fabulous. That's fabulous. Because you've got experience of living in these beautiful places, haven't you?
I have, yes. And I think maybe that's part of why this book felt so easy to write. Yes, so my husband and I lived in the British Virgin Islands back in 2016, 2017. And actually the reason we left is because we got caught up in Hurricane Irma, which was a Category 5 hurricane. So I had that experience too. And it's done in a very upbeat way, of course, for a rom-com. But yeah, there was a lot of crossover. Of course, I did not live on a billionaire's private island, sadly.
I think you have the authenticity of having sort of lived in a place like that, so you can bring that into your story, can't you?
Yes, I think so. I hope so. And and all of the negatives as well, because of course it's beautiful, but there are pesky mosquitoes and things too. And there is a risk that you get a bad hurricane season. So not a small risk. So I hope so. I hope people sort of are transported with that kind of realism, I suppose, that I can add to the setting as well.
Oh, well, I haven't read this book yet, but I read your previous one, Fake It Till You Make It, and I absolutely adored that one too.
Oh, thank you.
Because you only signed, you're a Boldwood author like me, and you signed with them, it was last year, wasn't it?
Yes, so my first Boldwood book came out in August last year. Yeah, that was The Law of Attraction. That's the first standalone in a Brits in Manhattan series I have.
So what actually is happening next then? Have you got another one with Boldwood? Did you sign for 4 books?
I actually signed for 6.
Oh, wow.
So the final one of my 6-book deal is coming out in April. So April 2025. And I can't say too much about it yet. And I'm sure that the title will change. So I don't even want to give you a title right now. But needless to say, I am on deadline right now to turn and edit.
I'm on deadlines right now as well. My book's got to be delivered. I think it's the 1st of December. Well, it is. I know it's the 1st of December. And so, yes, I'm on deadline as well with my one. But I mean, I just do this. So I am absolutely in awe, because you've got 2 little babies, haven't you? 2 little ones, 2 gorgeous little boys. How you fit in your job, it's a serious job. This is a full-on job that you have to obviously be focused on, being a corporate lawyer. I mean, that's nothing easy. And then you've got a very young family, and then, well, a 6-book deal. That is an awful lot for somebody to fit into their day. How on earth you must be very good with your timekeeping?
Well, it's interesting. I also just re-signed for another 6 books with Boldwood as well, so there's no end in sight.
Congratulations! That's a glutton for punishment.
Yes, exactly that. Yes, life is busy, Debs, honestly. So I think, you know, before I had kids, I probably would have given you some kind of smug response. It was like, oh, you know, if it's your passion, you'll make time. And now I am just quite honest with the fact I'm just exhausted all of the time.
Well, you're very good on it. That's all I can say. I honestly do not, you know, kudos to you. I do not know how you do this. I really don't know how you do this.
I mean, I've learned some lessons though, you know, and I learn a lesson with every book. And I think one of the things, I had a pretty horrendous edit last year. In fact, it was on Fake It Till You Make It.
Oh.
And you know, a few things happened. I really ran out of time just submit the manuscript initially. So I would have liked to have turned the edit another couple of times before I submitted it. So I kind of knew that I was in for a fairly big structural edit. And I pre-warned my editor as well, Emily. And gosh, when it came, it was good. It came in December, which is a really busy time in the legal world. It's obviously a busy family and social time. And it was awful. So I promised myself after that one that I would write or edit every single day without fail. The only thing that I do is when we go on family holiday, I completely take it off these days. And I won't sit and edit and things like I would have previously. So yeah, right, days a week job. Mummy is 7 days a week, and yeah, law is 4 full days. I did drop a day. So yeah, I mean, it's busy, but I think honestly, if it wasn't writing, I probably couldn't do it, you know, if it was another job. But there's so much of, now I don't enjoy editing, so I'm going to caveat this. I don't really enjoy editing, but in terms of writing, I mean, I'm sure you're the same. I get lost in it and I escape to it. And so there's an element of a little bit like what somebody else watching something, you know, streaming something or reading a book. And so, especially when I'm writing a first draft, it's almost downtime at the same time, if that makes sense. I don't
know. I totally, get that. Yeah.
Yeah, there are times where there's a pinch. So when I'm on deadline right now and I know my edit needs to be submitted, I've also got a brand new book coming out. And the thing that I really struggle with is promo and socials. That I find is just,
it's a
really
lot,
hard.
isn't it? It's a lot. Yeah, I struggle with that all the time. And it's, I don't know about you, but you've probably got accounts on various different platforms. And it's trying to keep up with all those different things as well, isn't it? And also, you know, there's only so many ways to promote something. You know, some people are brilliant at it. I've really had to step out of my comfort zone to promote. Because it's, you know, you're brought up to not show off, as it were. And then it's like, no, it's not showing off. It's actually promotion. It's marketing. And if you haven't grown up, I think, or lived in that marketing world, that's a strange thing to get used to, I think, for a lot of authors, you know, if you're not from that sort of background.
I agree. And then the other things, just the practicalities of having to have your hair washed. And you know, put a little bit of makeup on, and it's maybe I could manage these things if I could do it, you know, in my sweaty gym clothes straight after the gym. But
absolutely. I mean, this morning I had to take one dog to the vet, vaccinations and stuff, and then I went straight to walk them, and then I had to go and see my mum and do some shopping. And I thought, I better put on some makeup before I go, because I'll be straight back and then I'll be talking to Laura and I'll be recording this. So yes, I get that. Yeah, absolutely.
That's exactly it. Yeah, all of those bits. And you know, just some people are amazing, and I honestly, I just think hats off to them with the socials. But it's really hard to just think of new things. And I mean, this is lovely because I've got my cup of tea and I'm basically having a chat with my author friend, and so this is nice. Oh, look at you, talk about promo.
That's true. I just haven't, because I think, oh, I like these, but I've actually stopped doing this now because I mean, this is fine, but I have certain books that have then been relaunched or something, and I've got mugs, you know, with covers on that actually aren't on the books anymore, you know, and it's just like, and also my family was like, how many mugs does one person need? So, and my mother doesn't want to be given one anymore, so she's got enough. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, it is a lot. But like you say, I mean, earlier this year? Yes, it was earlier this year. Same thing. Mine was like sort of my circumstances. Basically, I had to put off delivering one of my books a couple of times, and basically what I, on the one hand, writing fiction, like you say, it's, you can totally lose yourself, and it is wonderful, and it's lovely in the fact that you control what happens on your fictional side, where you can't on, in real life. So that was great. But if your head isn't in that headspace, which mine wasn't really, I delivered this book that had to be completely rewritten. I felt sorry for my editor. I thought it was fine at the time. As soon as I got it back and had to write, I realized it wasn't. And then I bumped into you somewhere, and I think we're both going over to London actually for, I don't know if it was the Boldwood party or the RNA conference or something. And you mentioned just before Christmas, because I was thinking, how am I going to do it? And then you said, and I know you weren't, and I know you've got these little children, and you had to say something just before Christmas. It's like, you know what, if Laura can actually get on and do that, I think I can. I don't actually have to think of anything other than these 3 dogs, So I actually, put on my big girl hats and just get on with it.
You do write more books than me a year. I write 2.
I do write 2. Oh, right. I was wondering about that. Yes, so I do 2 a year for Boldwood, but I also do my 1 a year for HarperCollins. It is a lot, yes. I mean, it is. I don't do anything else, and that's fine as long as nothing else happens in your life. And then it's quite hard to act, because, as you say, it's not just the writing. So you do that first draft, and I love the first draft. It's my favorite bit. And then you got the structural edits, which can be quite big. As soon as I deliver this, I've got to do my structural edits, which is pretty much a rewrite again for the HarperCollins one. And it's like, oh, you need this, and you probably should need that. And think, I hadn't even thought that. And they're brilliant ideas that you obviously have to think about them, but I've had to park that until I've done this. And then, of course, you've got all your different copy, line, and proof, all your different edits. So as you say, you're doing that with one book while you're writing another book, while you're promoting another book. So it's also, getting your head in the right space for each of these things, and they each require different, thought processes, don't they?
Completely. And they divert your attention away from, the main task, which is we need to write. You have to write. Otherwise, there's nothing to edit. There's nothing to promote. And everything just tries to steal time from the writing process.
Oh, it really, really does. And you don't want to miss out on things. I think summer's like probably the busiest time, isn't it? Well, you go away and do other things, but like we have the different parties, the author parties, which are always great fun. So obviously I never want to miss those. And then the conference. This is the first time I've been actually for years actually. I for the RNA, but it was fantastic fun again, spending days with other like-minded people, going to talks and hearing all about it. It sort of refills, doesn't it, that sort of like creative well, as it were.
Completely. It's I think I always leave these things feeling inspired, and it's very triggering I use that word in a good way, but it triggers things that will maybe sit in the periphery of my mind, and then I find that there were some excellent seminars and workshops at the RNA, and I found myself, I had kind of a double page open in my notebook, where on one side I was making notes about the workshop I was in, and then on the other side I was actually making notes about my current book. And they were not necessarily to do with the workshop I was in. It was just all of this kind of food for thought, and getting the juices flowing, getting the creative juices flowing.
Oh, so definitely. I mean, one of them was going to like the YouTube chat.
Yes.
And with Laura Bennett, that was brilliant. And also another one, I went to one about tropes, and I've had to learn about tropes. I didn't even know how many, and there's so many. And I went to one, and I was actually like you, I was taking notes at the time, because I was thinking, what tropes do most of my historical, I was thinking at the time, the one I was working on at that point. And it's like, oh gosh, it covers this, it covers that. Oh, it does this. I'm obviously on the right track. You know, it's that sort of thing. Because I don't know about you, I have very little confidence. And with every book I start, I always think, I don't know what I'm doing. And
I
what
can't
makes
do
me
this.
think, right? Do you do that as well?
Yes, completely. And do you know the worst thing for me is either, so you're writing your book and either you get a big edit on a different book,
Yeah.
or you get a negative review on whatever book is, you know, coming out. And suddenly you're sort of 50%, you're in that fat, heavy middle of whatever book you're writing, where you're already doubting yourself because you know
Yeah.
it's saggy in the middle. Every book starts saggy in the middle.
Yeah.
And then you get just one thing and it just is right. Yeah, I mean, I doubt myself every single book from the blank page, kind of, but pretty much all of the way through.
I'm
And
surprised actually how many authors do feel that way, because we come across, you know, because when you put things out on the different sort of platforms, you come across, I probably think, as confident, because we do actually know what we're doing. But it's quite surprising how many authors, probably most of them actually, have this imposter syndrome. You know, I mean, how many books have you written now? You've written quite a few.
So published, Stick in Paradise with You is my 12th. I've probably written 15, 15 or 16 maybe now. Some to be published, a couple that will never be published, but that's fine. They were learning
I have a
experiences.
couple of them as well. Yeah.
Everyone's got them, right? If you haven't got one in a drawer, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do. I think it's such an insular career path. And I know some people use beta readers. I don't. I write my first draft completely in silo. And I think also one of the things, and I'm sure you're the same, as you get further into your career and a publisher's trust for you is there,
Yeah.
you know, some of my ideas are only a pitch. They're a few lines long. And so I don't really know, you know, my editor's putting faith in me and believing that I'm going to turn that 3-line pitch into an idea. But it's not as if I've walked through the whole idea with her, unless we happen to have a very well-timed lunch or something, you know, and I go off on a tangent, and as happened with Stuck in Paradise with You, actually. But you know, you kind of operate in this silo, and so, and it's art, it's subjective. You don't know that anybody is going to like what you're working on, even if you're enjoying yourself, do you?
That is true. I mean, how wonderful to be. I remember, you know, the years where I was sort of trying to get agents or publishers or whatever, and you have to do the whole book and then a synopsis, and like you, I do a sort of vague outline, which is like a paragraph of this sort of thing, and maybe a bit about the characters and that sort of thing. And it's incredible that we now have publishers who just trust you to then, you know, they just sign you and they trust you to do that. But I suppose we've done it that many times. We do deliver, you know, and they're obviously happy with the books. So, but that's a wonderful position to be in now. But I mean, me,
It is.
years and years and years. I mean, I think I wrote my first book 97. Never, that's one of the draw ones. But I think 2005 I sort of actually started again. So that was, I mean, that's 19 years ago, and I've been published since 2013. So it was a good few years of trial and error and trying and learning. But I think the thing is, once you have written quite a few books, you know what's expected of you. You know what the story, there has to be the twists, the turns, the different elements that are needed. And that's, I think you get a sense of it, don't you?
I think you know the process. I read once that in any craft, it takes a decade to become an expert. So I got my first book deal in 2015. So in another year, I should be an expert at this.
Very well.
On my way, I'm not there yet. But yeah, I think what comes with practice is I know the process.
Yeah.
What you can, and I think even to some extent with publishers, everything's a guessing game in terms of what the market is doing, what, you know. And we write so far in advance from publication that we don't necessarily know what the market's going to be doing.
Yes,
when
it
that book
changes so quickly, doesn't it? And so drastically as well.
That's it. So my New Year's resolution this year actually was to just trust in the process, trust in the publishing process, and trust that eventually, you know, the book will come good. And of course, that's something else I don't know if people realize, but the marketing strategy at everybody's publisher is different.
Yeah.
So, you know, Boldwood markets in a different way to HarperCollins in your case, and I'm sure you see it because that, you know, they're two live examples. And I've had two publishing contracts running alongside each other with different publishers, and Boldwood's my fourth publisher. And everyone does things in slightly different ways. So some people set out to go and make a bang in the market, and others, and actually I think Boldwood is like this. It's more of a slow burn, and they're
building your brand, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, if you compare one book to another, the strategy is so different that it's so hard to say, okay, well, that one came out and it went straight into the top 100.
Yeah.
You know, yours comes out and it goes top 500 on release, and is that negative? You don't know until 6 to 12 months down the line. It's so hard to judge, and so you just have to trust that, you know, your publisher trusts in you, and you trust in your publisher's marketing strategy, and hopefully
and
you
like
have
that with your editors as well, isn't it? You know, your editor might come back with some completely different sort of twist to something, or in my case, we need to get rid of these characters, but you need to have this. You think, what? I never thought about that. And then when you think about it, think, yeah, because they know what they're doing. They're experts in their field. So you've got to trust in them, their process as well.
And I think also, you know, one of the things to remember, and I think every author would say this, is certainly true for me, is that every single book I learn something new.
Yes.
And I think I improve, and I would like to think, I mean, it's a bit of a joke in my house. My husband says I always say my latest book is my favorite book. I mean, in this case, absolutely true. But I think there is some truth in that, and it's because my writing has and should have improved with every single book. And you can tell, I think my editing process has improved as well. So now I will probably do 3 or 4 rounds of edits on my first manuscript before it's even submitted to anybody. And I think I can get that, you know, it might be that in structure, my editor says actually this element of the story needs to go. But in terms of the quality of the manuscript submitted, I think that is a vast improvement on what would have been submitted, you know, even 2 years ago. Just because I've learned to kind of, one of the big things I've learned is that's just waffle. You don't need it. Yes. If you don't need it, strike it out. And it hurts.
Self-edit yourself, don't you? As you're writing, think, oh, no, that'll. I can just picture her. No, that's not necessary. Yeah.
Yes, and I think everyone writes in a different way. For me, I do a very messy first draft, so I know that, and I have to remind myself when I read that first draft through for the first time that it's supposed to be that. That's what I intended to do. It's what I do every single time. It's okay. And there will be a lot of waffle in that. And I think usually that's because I'm over word count. I'm sorry, I realize I have a shadow on my face. I'm going to try and move for you. There we go. No, I've made it worse. There we go. Yeah, I know how to condense things now. And I think when you're doing that first draft, you need to get the words down, because you need to get to the point that, you know, okay, I now have a novel to edit. But I tend to find these days that I'm sort of maybe 10,000 words over count on my first draft. And that is so easy to bring down. Literally for me to just sit and go, you didn't need that, take it out. Or you've already said it. You said that on the other page, just in a different way, strike it out, put a line through it.
I do the opposite with, I have a very messy first draft, but I'm always I'm below the word count, because when I go through it again, because I like you always go through it before I submit it to my editor, that's when I bring in like the slightly different levels and build it slightly. And I know I'm going to do that. So I always work slightly below the word count, because I know then I generally go a bit over. It's funny. And I think for people just sort of who are writing, who probably aren't published and maybe had the experience we've had yet, I think one thing to know is everybody does it differently. Every author writes differently. Like we've just said, every book we write, we do it differently. So there's no exact science for doing this. and just figure out your own process and enjoy that process and go with that. I think, because I wasted years. Is this the right way, or is that the right way? Or, and there's no right way, really. You just basically get it down and try and make it the best you can, really, and learn from other bits.
And I do know, and I don't think it's the case for either of us, but I know a lot of authors actually who will write a chapter in the evening, they'll wake up the next day, they'll edit that chapter, and that they edit as they go. And for me, that doesn't work. And it's probably a time constraint thing for me also. I need to feel as if I got that book down, and I kind of know how long I need to write a first draft in to, just get to my deadline.
The time that you've got. I must admit, I used to do that right back in the beginning, but I now know if I want it to flow, I need to write the book. I need to get that draft down to know, because if I stopping and starting, it's like, sorry, where was I? And I just need to get it down. And like you, probably is that time constraint. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think also, Debs, I think we've both said that the first draft is the most fun bit. And I think it's because I lose myself in the first draft in the same way.
You're telling yourself the story, aren't you, I guess?
Exactly. I'm watching it play out on storyboards in my head. So actually to go back would be like watching your favorite series.
Do that again. Let me just get this
rewinding. I just want to see how it all unfolds. Yeah. And and I think there's an element in how prescriptive people are in planning as well of that, whereas I'm kind of somewhere between the two. I'm increasingly a planner actually, but I know sort of the beginning and end of a story and the broad arcs and the character conflicts, and then the detail in between. Sometimes, honestly, I read it back after a scriptural edit. Who wrote that? I don't remember writing that.
I don't remember half stuff. I'm going to have to cut you short, I'm afraid, because we're nearly out of time. So what's next for you then? Can I ask in the 1 minute? And I'll say thank you now in case we get cut off.
Yes, absolutely. So I have another rom-com coming out April 2025. I've got a couple of large book signings for Brits Book Fest and Rare coming up next year. And I'm now on a 6-monthly schedule again with Boldwood because I've re-upped my contract. So I've got an October release next year that I'm just starting to write, and every April, October after that. I've also got 2 backlist books, The Kitchen and Girlfriends, that are getting a facelift with Boldwood. So they'll be coming out February and August in between. So same story, different look.
That is so brilliant. Congratulations to all that, Laura, and for your new contract. That is really wonderful news. And thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed myself.
Thank you, Debs, and congratulations to you, because Hollyhock Farm #2 is coming out soon as well.
Yes, I'm so excited. So that's lovely to see you, and thank you very much.